Welcome back, everybody, to Unbashful. As always, I'm your host, Nicholas Doucette, and I'm excited for another week and another opportunity for me to sit in front of this mic and in front of this camera. And today we're going to be discussing lots of news, lots of information. It's likely going to be titled Let's Talk Shop. And Let's Talk Shop episodes basically just consists of me just kind of discussing things going on in the world, news related to movies, whatever, video games, industry stuff, whatever the case, just news going on in that sort of kind of realm. And we're going to kick things off with the big Microsoft deal with Activision, which I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard of by now. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, I'll kind of catch you up to speed. Basically, Microsoft purchased Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion with a fat B, capital B, $billion. That is insane. This kind of came out of nowhere. Usually when we hear about deals like this, we kind of get scoops, prior to it happening. We kind of hear about, things developing behind the scenes, meetings and stuff like that taking place. But for this really just came out of left field. Now, as for how long this took, I'm going to stop myself right there because the deal actually isn't done yet. Nothing has been signed. They've just announced that it's going to happen. Very similar to when the Fox and Disney deal happened several years ago. When that got announced in 2018, that didn't happen until the following year in 2019. Or it was either 2019 or 2020. But they announced it was going to happen, but the dotted line wasn't signed until a year or two later. So that is pretty much what we're seeing here with this deal. This deal was announced, but Microsoft isn't going to acquire the rights and all the IPs to Activision until probably late 2023 next year. But yeah, $68.7 billion is the exact number. But a lot of people that are covering this, a lot of content creators are just saying it's 70 million. You could round up. It's another, 0.3 billion, or 2.3 billion, whatever. I don't fucking know. But we'll just call it 70, I guess. But yeah, to be exact, it's 68.7. And I'm going to actually talk about the details here. This information comes from Microsoft themselves. This comes from the Microsoft News Center website. It says here, quote, Microsoft will acquire Activision Blizzard for $95 per share in an all-cash transaction valued at, like I just said, $68.7 billion. Inclusive of Activision Blizzard's net cash. I can't even speak today. When the transaction closes, Microsoft will become the world's third largest gaming company by revenue, behind Tencent and Sony. This is huge news, and we're going to cover the reasons why. We're going to cover some of the big games that Activision owns, that Activision has created. We're all familiar with games like Call of Duty, obviously, Overwatch, World of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, and Candy Crush. A lot of people don't really talk about Candy Crush, but it's one of the paramount mobile games in the phone industry, game industry, whatever you want to call it, apps. It's one of the biggest ones, and it definitely dominates in that area, and that is an Activision game. So Microsoft is just swallowing all this up, all these incredibly large, substantial franchises. Now they got Bethesda. For those of you who don't know Bethesda, they're the people that make Skyrim, Fallout, and many other games. Bethesda Obsidian Studios to be exact. So they bought them a couple years ago. I think that was about $7 billion, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I think that was around $7 or $8 billion. So this is just huge. This is insane. And to provide context, when Disney bought Fox a couple of years ago, when everybody was kind of, excited at the possibility of Marvel and Disney being able to acquire those Fox characters, all the X-Men characters and Deadpool, when that was kind of being discussed and that finally went down, that deal finally happened, that deal was about $71.3 billion. So that wasn't too far off from where we are here. And you got to think that deal was to acquire, like I said, some of the biggest film properties in entertainment, right? Like I said, all the X-Men and, all the other, basically everything that Fox owned. That was theirs. It's now Disney's. So that makes sense. Like 70 something billion dollars, whatever, that makes sense. But 68.7 billion for, video games, essentially, that is huge. And that is really a kind of a testament to the worth and the financial value that these video games have. And it's not just video games, but that's pretty much the bulk of, it is video games. That's what Activision, is. They're a video game publishing company. They don't make films. They don't make TV shows. They make video games. And Activision right now, they're in desperate need of some kind of restructure. We all heard the news regarding all the sexual allegations and all the misconduct that's taken place in these development studios under Activision. So we all know what's going on, and we're all aware of the scumbag that is Bobby Kotick, who is the CEO of Activision. And I'm going to get into him in a second. So we all know that Activision is down horrible. Like, they are in a terrible position. Their stock numbers have just been plummeting, as a reflection as to all the shitty things that they've caught themselves up in. Completely their fault too. So they're in desperate need of new leadership, new direction, and it looks like this Microsoft deal, with Phil Spencer being the head of Microsoft, it looks like he's going to set them in the right direction. And this is another reason why this kind of caught me off guard, because when all these allegations, came to the forefront about whatever back in the summer, Phil Spencer was one of the first people to speak out and say, hey, we are going to sit back and we're going to evaluate our relationship with Activision. And we're going to see if, I'm paraphrasing, but, he basically said, like, we're going to kind of have to sit back and see if we really want to continue working with you guys. And I guess he sat back, he looked back, and then he told himself, well, instead of us collaborating, we're just going to fucking buy him. We're just going to buy him outright, and then we'll make the changes. And you know what? That is a boss move. And I think that there is a lot of potentially exciting things to come with this deal. Like I said, in terms of new leadership, a new path for Activision, a good path. And I got some more details here regarding the transaction that's going to happen. And like I said, speaking of Bobby Kotick, I was reading more articles and watching more videos, and apparently he will remain the CEO of Activision until this deal closes. So basically, he's going to be the CEO for the next, year and a half, however long it takes for this deal to close. And then once that deal closes, he's going to just fuck off, essentially. And he's probably going to get a bunch of money. He already has so much money. I don't really think any more money is going to, move him up or down on the hierarchy of finances, whatever. So he's already a billionaire, but apparently he will not be the CEO anymore once this deal closes and once Microsoft, absorbs, if you will, Activision. So that is good news for the future. For now, we're gonna have to, Activision and all the people that have been affected by this, all these sexual allegations are going to have to, it sucks. They're gonna have to, wait basically another year and a half before this guy gets booted out of Activision. And it sucks, but it could be worse. This deal could just could not have happened, and then we're stuck with, or I keep saying we as if I work there or something. And then there's another possibility or another whatever world where this deal didn't happen, and then they have to continue to put up with his shitty antics. So I'm glad to hear that eventually by next year Bobby Kotick will be out and gone. So yeah, and like I said, hopefully this acquisition will guide Activision towards a new healthy direction for obviously the employees as the first priority, because those many people have been affected and have been traumatized. And like we covered in one of my previous podcasts, a woman actually killed herself because of these incidents between her and her fellow coworkers that were sexually harassing her. So that is fucked up. So I really want to see some justice happen and hold the people accountable that were involved in these just disgusting acts of misconduct in Activision. So I'm glad that there is potentially going to be some justice and some accountability that will be taken moving forward. Basically up next now, everybody's asking, how is Sony going to respond? Is Sony going to just have to, put their foot down and say, we're going to buy this studio. We're going to buy Ubisoft or something. I don't think Sony needs to do that. I'm sure Sony probably saw this coming before most people. And I'm sure they probably have a plan as to what they're going to do. I mean, look, it's not like Sony is struggling right now anyways. It's not like they're in desperate need of saving, right? So I think Sony's going to be fine. But now talking about the games, and more specifically Call of Duty. Real quick, just to kind of talk about Call of Duty. I've basically quit playing COD. I haven't really talked about it on the podcast in a while. I made a video about Vanguard, Call of Duty Vanguard. I made a video about that when that first launched about 3 months ago. And I basically stopped playing. I haven't played really since like early December, and I don't really have any intentions to go back. I've just learned that Call of Duty is kind of just a game that just takes, it's a time killer. It really, you spend time playing, and this could really go for all video games, but you spend a lot of time playing this game. And not only is it terrible right now, it's not even worth playing, but you don't really get anything out of it in general. So you basically just waste your time. If you're not pursuing it professionally, I just don't really suggest anybody to play Call of Duty. Now, I've still been playing some video games here and there, like, story mode games, but, I'll play those for like 45 minutes and then that's enough for me. But COD is just, I don't know. It's just, I've kind of quit on playing that game. But I still like to, follow the news and keep up to date with it. And with Call of Duty, because out of all the, big, franchise games that they've acquired, Call of Duty is really the only one that I care about, I guess, because I don't play World of Warcraft. I don't play Candy Crush or Overwatch or any of those other games. But there is a strong possibility that eventually Call of Duty could be an Xbox exclusive. That would be so fucking funny if that happened. People would lose their minds. I mean, people on, PlayStation would lose their minds. I mean, people on PC would probably be able to play it still, but yeah, that would be insane. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to think that could happen. Now, Phil Spencer has already said that they're going to honor the PlayStation exclusivity deal that Sony and Call of Duty has. But I think that exclusivity deal that PS5 or that Sony has with Call of Duty, I think that ends. I think that stops in 2023. I think that the 2023 Call of Duty, whatever it's going to be, Black Ops fucking 7 at this point, I think that's going to be their last game on that exclusivity deal. And then at that point, it's open season for Microsoft. They can do whatever they want. So what could happen is that, like I said, we know that Microsoft is going to honor that contract, and we know that they're going to let those same factors with Call of Duty and PlayStation, they're going to let that continue for the next 2 years. But once that expires and it's really their game, there is a very strong possibility that we could say, or that we could see Microsoft essentially say, fuck you, Sony, we're going to just take this game from you guys. And I'm not a business, extraordinaire. I don't really know much about the business side of video games and stuff like that, but I can imagine that there's probably pros and cons to, both situations, being that they make it an Xbox exclusive and they literally don't let anybody on, or they don't give access to PlayStation players to use it. And the flip side of the coin, they continue letting PS5 users and PS4 users be able to play Call of Duty, but without that exclusivity after that deal ends with Sony and Call of Duty. So I'm sure there's pros and cons from a financial perspective, but yeah, very interesting, and I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. So let me know down in the comments below what you guys think is going to happen. And so that is going to be it for the Microsoft news. Moving on, I'm going to be talking about The Power of the Dog. I just watched this movie for the first time a couple days ago, And I really, really enjoyed it. It's one of there's quite a few films from last year that I just haven't seen. And in fact, I was watching one of my previous episodes recently. I think it was the one where I talked about my top 10 favorite films from 2023, and I made a mistake in the way I worded it. I said there are films. I said the 10 films. What did I say again? I said I said these 10 films I haven't seen, which made zero sense. Now I'm sure for those of you who watched, you probably could interpret or infer what I meant to say. But yeah, I said, like, keep in mind the films on this list I haven't seen, and obviously I have. What I meant to say was keep in mind there are films that came out in 2021 that I haven't seen. And what I was trying to say was the films on the list that I have here of the 10, these are the films that I have seen of 2021, like, you know, the films that I've actually sat down and watched. Because what I was trying to say was that there were a lot of films that came out in 2021 that I hadn't seen, like The Tragedy of Macbeth and like The Power of the Dog. So had I seen those films, some of them probably would have been on this list. And I think The Power of the Dog definitely would be on my list for my top 10 for sure. It probably would have replaced, I would say, a film like The Green Knight I had on my list. I think I enjoyed The Power of the Dog more. But anyway, so just to kind of give a plot, summary here. This comes from IMDb. Charismatic rancher Phil Burbank inspires fear and awe in those around him. When his brother brings home a new wife and her son, Phil torments them until he finds himself exposed to the possibility of love. And so that's basically just a nice detailed plot summary for those of you who don't know what film I'm talking about. And I really enjoyed it, and I think this is definitely one of the best Benedict Cumberbatch performances I've seen. And you can tell from the moment this film happens, he is really, he's very rude. He's very rude to the other people around him. You could tell that he's the leader of the ranch, that everybody kind of follows him. He's your very stereotypical cowboy. And as the film unfolds, you realize that this almost seems like it's an act. This almost doesn't seem genuine of Benedict Cumberbatch. I watched a video of someone breaking down the film, and I forget the YouTuber it was, but they said that it seems like he was overcompensating, and I 100% believe that. And you realize that there's a reason because of this. He's essentially living a fake life. He's not acting his normal self, and he's putting on an act to impress other people because he's trying to essentially hide the fact that he's a homosexual. And this film takes place in 1925, I think. So I don't even have to go into detail as to how, homosexuals were treated back then and how it was seen as a society. It's terrible how they were treated back then. So obviously, him being a homosexual, he didn't want people to know that. So he put on essentially this like fake mask, this fake identity as this, strong, tough cowboy. In reality, that's really not who he is. And that's not really how he wants to act, but he doesn't want to reveal this, this part of his life to other people. And here comes his brother's wife. And with his brother's wife, she brings her son. And this character in particular, you could tell he's very, very different. He's very smart. He's very articulate. And he's very different from the other people that work and live on this ranch. He's not really a cowboy. He's a very sophisticated person. And you could tell he's very comfortable, and he's very comfortable with his identity. He's not trying to impress anybody else. And you could see that Benedict Cumberbatch, while he makes fun of him in the beginning of the film, he starts to almost develop a sort of admiration, a sort of envy for him, because he's seeing that this young man, he doesn't care, and it doesn't bother him that people think that he's different. It doesn't bother him that people, make jokes about the way he looks or the way he dresses. He is comfortable in his own skin. He is comfortable with the way he acts and the way he talks. So Benedict Cumberbatch starts to spend time with him. He starts to hang out with him. And like I said, you can see that they're developing this friendship out of envy from Benedict Cumberbatch's character. He sees that, this guy, he's living the life that almost I wish I could live, in the fact that he is just himself and he doesn't care about what people think about him. And there's a very important scene in the film that kind of signifies that, when the wife's son, I think his name is Peter in the film, he's walking past all the ranch workers, and all the ranch workers are kind of laughing and making fun of him. And he's walking stern, he's walking with his shoulders back, and you could just tell he's very, very confident in himself. And Benedict observes that, and he says, that is the person that I wish I could be. I wish I could walk forward and just be myself and not have to put on this facade of this fake sort of person that I don't want to be. And it was very, very moving. It was very, very touching. And overall, I loved the film. Next, we got Moon Knight. So right off the bat, I haven't been this excited for a Disney Plus show probably since Loki. I was really excited. Like, I was excited for WandaVision because, it was the first MCU show that we were getting. So I was excited to see how they're going to handle it, how they're going to, reference the films, and how everything is kind of going to be cohesive and tied together in a way that makes sense. But I was super excited for Loki just because the aesthetic and, the TVA, storyline that we haven't really seen yet, that was exciting. But with Moon Knight, I think I'm a little bit more excited. And for many reasons that I'm going to break down. I'm extremely excited for Moon Knight, but I'm not entirely familiar with the source material. I've been doing some research, and for this episode I have a lot of quotes and research that I'm going to read off, but it's almost like, because I'm not too familiar with the character, that sort of curiosity in me, and from the few things that I've heard, that right there just makes me want to learn more, right? Because, when you hear that they're making a superhero, like, for example, when people heard that they were doing Captain America, for example, way back in the day, everybody is familiar with Captain America, or when they were doing Spider-Man or whatever and so on. Most people are familiar with these characters, but Moon Knight, I guess, if you're not a hardcore comic book fan or a reader like I'm not, I don't really read much comic books, then this is very new. And, but I'm just incredibly excited. And it looks different than anything Marvel has really done yet. Like, I know we hear people say that, like, every time, a new Marvel film's coming out or a new show, we're seeing press junkets, and you'll see the cast and the crew be like, this is something that you've never seen before. But unlike the other Marvel properties, this looks incredibly different. I think the last sort of Marvel property that's come out that's looked very, from aesthetics to story and characters, the last film that's really looked very different from the others is probably Eternals, which is literally like incredibly recent. That was like November. This kind of falls into that as well. This looks very, very different, and Marvel is exploring these stories and these characters that people aren't very familiar with, and it's turning out to be a huge success. So I think they're doing that yet again here. And just going off the trailer, like, yes, it was cool to see Moon Knight, to see the guy in the cape and the outfit, but I'm really also excited to see them kind of go through those deeper layers of that character. I'm really excited to kind of see like where they go with that. And with this sort of split personalities that he has that we're going to get into. And obviously I think Oscar Isaac is he's gonna kill it in this role. I think it was really, really good casting on Marvel's behalf to choose him for this. And kind of like how I just mentioned with the split personality stuff, Marvel is going to be exploring mental health. And they've done it before. I'm not going to say that they've never done it, but they're really, really going to be doing it with this character, because this character has what's called dissociative identity disorder. And basically what that is there's sort of split personalities that an individual is, kind of going back in between. I'll give a more detailed description of this, just so I don't sound, misinformed. Dissociated personality disorder. Dissociative identity disorder. Description here. Let's go on definition. The existence of two or more distinctive identities or personality states. The distinctive identities are accompanied by changes in behavior, memory, and thinking. The signs and symptoms may be observed by others or reported by the individual. So yeah, that's basically a more kind of detailed version of what that is exactly. And that is what the Moon Knight character has and struggles with in this film. Now, in the trailer, we see Oscar Isaac as Stephen Grant, which is one of his identities. But when he's in his Moon Knight character, I assume we're probably going to see him in that Mark Spector identity. And actually, in the trailer, he gets a phone call from one of his phones, and the woman in the phone call, she says, what's going on with you, Mark? And then he, obviously being at that time in the Stephen Grant identity, he's like, why are you calling me Mark? And I think he's going to have different accents to distinguish and to separate and to sort of signal to the audience that this is Mark Spector. This is Stephen Grant, because I don't think we're going to see a British accent, although he does it very, very well, Oscar Isaac, because Oscar Isaac, he doesn't have that accent normally, and I do think he does a very good accent, British accent. And just in terms of the character of Mark Spector, because that's kind of like the main identity that we see him as in the comics when he is Moon Knight. But here's a little more detailed description, and this information comes from marvel.fandom.com. And I quote, "Once a mercenary, Mark Spector was left for dead in the desert, where he was revived by the moon god Khonshu," which I think we actually see Khonshu in this trailer. It's that little sequence when Mark is in the elevator and he looks down the hallway and he sees what it looks to be Khonshu kind of walking towards him. But anyways, I continue on here. Appointed as Khonshu's fifth and high priest, Moon Knight enacts justice to protect those who travel at night. Moon Knight also has dissociative identity disorder, which I already talked about. Some of their alters being mercenary Mark Spector, millionaire Stephen Grant, who I just talked about as well, and cab driver Jake Lockley. So, So he has basically three personalities that he has, which I just talked about. And Mark Spector is a mercenary, so I assume the sort of combat and the fighting techniques we will see from that character, because Stephen Grant seems to be more of like a reserved, identity, sort of introverted. So that is how I think they're going to explore that. And it also kind of seems like he struggles with like narcolepsy as well. I mean, he says right at the beginning of the trailer, I have a sleeping disorder. And I've heard some people say that the sleeping disorder might be the way Marvel explains how he transitions to those personalities. Like maybe the next time he wakes up, he's Jake Lockley, or maybe after, he falls asleep and then he wakes up and then he's Mark Spector. So maybe that's kind of how they'll explore the transitions of the personalities. But I'm extremely excited. This really just kind of gives me thriller, suspense kind of vibes, you know what I mean? And I don't mean thriller as in like, Michael Jackson, the music video thriller. I mean like the genre, like a thriller suspense kind of drama with obviously superhero elements, obviously, at the end of the day. And that final shot of him in the Moon Knight, the full costume when he walks towards the camera, that looks really, really cool. And then when he was kind of jumped across from the buildings, that looked really, really cool as well. So yeah, Moon Knight, I'm incredibly excited. It comes out in March, I think towards the end of March. Seems like it's so far away. And yeah, I can't wait to see that. I think judging by the community and judging by the fandom, I would say it seems like people are most excited for this MCU show that they have been yet, out of all the shows that have come out. Now, obviously, WandaVision, I think objectively is the most successful show. I mean, I think it won like an Emmy or something like that. So objectively, I think it's the most watched, or I think it is the most watched MCU show. But for me, Loki's my favorite. But I think there's a very, very good chance that this show can knock it off. And actually, I forgot to talk about this one other significant character, being Ethan Hawke's character. I'm not quite sure who he's playing. It seems to be the antagonist of the show, and he seems to be some kind of cult leader, so I think that's pretty interesting as well. And yeah, two great actors. I think the writing is probably going to be significant, because I think we even heard Ethan Hawke say in the past that he's not really interested in these kind of films, being comic book films, so obviously something of this project had to intrigue him. So I'm sure he probably thought the script was very good. And the whole idea of the story itself probably intrigued him. Because like I said, this is very different. This isn't just Caped Crusader fights crime. This is very deeper and has more elements than that. So I can't wait. So everyone has wanted to know and has been speculating, how long is the Batman going to be? Is it going to be 2 hours? Is it going to be 2.5 hours? Is it going to be an hour and 40? You know what I mean? So people have been trying to figure out how long is this film going to be, right? And typically in most comic book franchises, you know what I mean, that have like a trilogy, usually the first film is anywhere between 2 hours and 10 minutes or like 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 30 minutes. It's kind of like sits in that area for most films like this, most comic book films. But no, this film is the second longest comic book film, just behind Avengers Endgame. Now, this information here comes from The Hollywood Reporter. This comes from Pamela McClintock. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce that. And she is from Hollywood Reporter. And this information, and I quote, Matt Reeves' new The Batman movie runs at 2 hours and 55 minutes. Sign me the fuck up. I could sit there and watch a fucking 5-hour Batman film. So 3 hours basically, I will take that. Anyways, it continues on to say, the hefty running time includes about 8 minutes of credits, insiders at Warner Brothers confirmed to The Hollywood Reporter on Thursday. That is super exciting. Now, for those of you out there that aren't really the biggest fans of long films, this might be a tough watch. But for me personally, I've always said this, to my friends, and I think I've even mentioned it on the show here. Batman's always been my favorite superhero. Marvel, as kind of like a universe, and in all the films that encapsulate that side of the superhero, because you have DC and you have Marvel, right? I've always kind of preferred Marvel, but just to pick one superhero as my favorite, it's always been Batman. So I could sit there and watch a 3-hour Batman film. Did I expect it to be this long? Hell no. But like I said, sign me up, because that is fucking incredible. And it really just shows that the trailers have not shown really anything. And we could see that kind of marketing push has started. They're starting to roll out the TV spots, little snippets of not really new footage, but new kind of angles of it. We saw this with Spider-Man No Way Home. They basically just recycled the same kind of fight sequences and shots over and over in their sort of marketing push as well, but they were just kind of doing different angles of it, maybe a little bit of different dialogue, but basically the same kind of shots and scenes. And I think we're kind of seeing that with the Batman as well. So we really haven't seen much of this film. We did get one new shot though in one of the TV spots that I thought was so fucking cool. It looks like Batman is literally running up a fucking building or running down a building with like a harness on him. That was really, really cool to see. And yeah, like I said, just to give kind of my thoughts on that, that is incredible. And that just gets me super fucking excited. But it also just makes me really, really, really hope that this film does not get delayed, because it comes out in March. March is right around the corner. Now, I'm hopeful because the Omicron cases seem to be going down in a lot of parts of the world. Not all, but definitely there's definitely a decrease in many parts of the world in terms of COVID cases. So I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that it's not going to get delayed, because we did see Morbius get delayed, but then again, Morbius was supposed to come out this month, so that makes sense. I knew Morbius was going to get delayed way before they even announced it. Like, not new as in like I had insiders tell me. I mean, I think it's just kind of common sense. Most people would expect it to be delayed because, in the beginning of this month of January, COVID was running rampant. So that kind of made sense. But March, it's a couple months away. I think it'll be okay. I don't think it'll be delayed. I hope not. Now, what does this tell us, right? What does this kind of signify to us with a 3-hour runtime, basically? I'll just call it 3 hours, 2 hours and 55 minutes. It's 5 minutes shy of being 3 hours. This tells us many things that could be potentially happening. Number one, setting up the foundation for sequels. Now, that may not sound great, because we've seen a lot of films kind of lose their identity and almost just be placeholders to set up future properties, right? That's a very common criticism that Avengers Ultron had, because there is a lot of setup in that film for the future Infinity Saga films, that inevitably led up to Infinity War and Endgame. There's a lot of setup in that film for future Marvel characters, for the overall Infinity Saga storyline, but you can still do it in a way that doesn't take away from the narrative in that film. So with a 3-hour runtime, you have many opportunities to set up future Batman films and still give enough time for the narrative of this first film. So I think, like I said, setting up the foundation for sequels. And then for Matt Reeves, we've seen in a lot of his films, if you've seen the Planet of the Apes films, he loves to engross you as the audience into this world that he is developing, into this sort of, universe. And I think we're really going to see Matt Reeves kind of developing that vision that he has for Gotham City, because I think this is going to be a very different Gotham City than we've seen in the Bale films, in the Michael Keaton films, and then, in the Ben Affleck films. So I think we're really going to see him kind of do that, world building, if you will, and sort of developing the world of Gotham City. And speaking of developing, obviously developing the character of Bruce Wayne, but he's already said that this is not an origin film. So I also think that we're going to really see Matt Reeves kind of develop the characters, beside or the characters outside of Bruce Wayne, like Catwoman, like Penguin, Riddler, the Falcone crime family, Commissioner Gordon, Alfred, right? So I think we're really going to kind of see those characters, and that all kind of falls in line with the, developing the lore and the mythology of Matt Reeves' version of Gotham City. That kind of comes with it, but we're really going to see, I think, those characters developed. And furthermore, we do know that Penguin, Colin Farrell's Penguin, we do know that he is going to be getting his own series. So that's even going to further develop the lore and the mythology of this world of Batman. And there was actually a scene that apparently was accidentally thrown in as an ad on YouTube. It's literally like a 2-minute scene from the film of that kind of funeral scene that we've seen in some of the trailers, the little snippets. But now we get a full 2-minute clip from that scene. And Robert Pattinson doesn't say a word, but yet you see in his emotion, the distress in his face, the worry, and he looks up and he sees Riddler at that sort of, that balcony, as, you could tell that something really fucked up is about to happen. And then boom, you see that truck drive through the church during this funeral, and it almost hits that little boy. And you could tell Robert Pattinson, he's getting that sort of Batman instinct. He sees that little boy, I need to get him because it looks like some danger is going to happen, and I need to save him. And you could see he's quick on his step, and he's able to save that kid. But like I said, you don't even hear a word out of Bruce Wayne. You see him you can tell he's very intense, and you could tell he's very observant of what's happening, and he could tell that there's something bad about to happen. And he listens to the cops behind him just talk about what's going on, trying to get a little inside scoop as to what's happening. The sort of detective Batman that we've heard is coming with this film. And it's funny, in that clip, one of the cops looks at Bruce Wayne. He's like, "Hey, Bruce Wayne, what's up, man?" And he just kind of Robert Pattinson's just he just kind of looks away, you know what I mean? He doesn't even really acknowledge him. He kind of just looks at him. And so very, very intense, very, very, just discreet and mysterious. That just got me super excited. It, gave me chills watching that. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the plot rumors that we've heard. And one of them is that the Riddler is really going to expose not only how corrupt the political system is of Gotham City, because apparently he kills the mayor of the city at the beginning of the film. So not only is he going to expose the dark truths that lie in Gotham City, but he apparently is also going to expose the Wayne family, and he's going to show their corruption as well. Not specifically Bruce Wayne, but Bruce Wayne's parents. And we actually I think that is very, very possible, because we've seen hints of that in the trailer. We've seen that Riddler kind of has this wall showing all these sort of news stories and all these, photos of the Waynes and of the corrupt, system in the politics of Gotham City. And I think Bruce Wayne even says to Alfred, "You lied to me all these years, Alfred." So that is very exciting. Another rumor, now this is The first one is a rumor, but there's definitely evidence to support that in the trailers and stuff like that, and through interviews that we've heard through the director of Matt Reeves and the other cast members. But this next rumor is really a rumor, and I don't know if I believe it's going to happen, but I do think it is very interesting and definitely worth conversation. So this rumor is that the Riddler could actually be the brother to Bruce Wayne. And maybe that is why he is so upset, because maybe the Waynes just didn't want him and they just threw him in some, foster care or whatever. I'm just speculating. I don't think that's going to happen, because if you watch The Joker, they kind of delved into that a little bit. I mean, you do find out that Arthur Fleck isn't actually Bruce Wayne's brother, but his mom kind of leads him to believe that. So they sort of explored that, storyline a little bit. They would be doing it again, but in a different way. I'll be honest, though. I hope that this actually happens, because that is really, really interesting. Because, like I said, they did it in Joker, but you find out that Arthur Fleck, Joaquin Phoenix's character, he isn't actually the brother to Bruce Wayne. It was just the misinformation that his mom was telling him. But if we find out that Riddler, Paul Dano's character, I think Edward Nashner or Edward Nigma, whatever the two, I know there's two different versions of the Riddler in the comics, but whatever Edward that we get, if you find out that he's really Edward Wayne, that is really, really exciting and interesting, and that could kind of set up maybe even future narratives and future sequels or whatever, because who knows, maybe Paul Dano signed a multi-film contract, maybe he'll come back for another film, maybe not as the main villain, but anyways, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but yeah, that is one rumor, the Riddler potentially being Bruce Wayne's brother. Pretty interesting. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't. But do I want it to happen? Yes, because I think that would be very, very cool. Now, kind of lastly here about the Batman news, apparently there's news that there was a 4-hour screening of this film. That is fucking awesome. And hopefully Matt Reeves gets to make a director's cut, and I would watch a 4-hour Batman film. I would have no problem. I had no problem watching the 4-hour Snyder cut. That film doesn't even feel like it's 4 hours long. That's the thing. A film could be very long, but if the pacing is done right, the film could feel like a breeze. It could feel like just a roller coaster. And yeah, so hopefully we get a director's cut of a 4-hour Batman film, because I would sit there and watch that. So kind of the last topic here to wrap up today's episode. Dwayne Johnson is apparently going to be starring in an unknown video game film. And apparently he's going to be, he actually recently said that he's going to be making an announcement later this year of the video game film that he is going to be starring in. And apparently it's one that's incredibly popular. He says he's even played it himself extensively. So that is pretty exciting. Now that kind of begs the question is, what video game could this be? And I've heard a lot of rumors that it could be God of War. I've heard some people say it could be Call of Duty. I don't really know how that one would work, but I've heard people say it's Fortnite. Now, a lot of people think it's going to be Fortnite because recently, I've never really played Fortnite, but I heard that they added him as like a playable character or something. So, I mean, maybe if you kind of draw the conclusions, he was added as a playable character in the video game, and then he just said, I'm making an announcement soon regarding a video game film I'm going to star in. Some people are kind of drawing the coincidences, or drawing them as not coincidences and as, related, I guess, that he'll be making a Fortnite film. That would kind of be interesting. I mean, I would watch a Fortnite rock film. I think that would be pretty cool. Would it be good? I don't really know if it would be good, but it'd be a nice film to just kind of turn your brain off and eat some popcorn. Now, as to which film I'm hoping it is, I think he is literally the perfect actor to play Kratos in a God of War film. I think he's almost born to do it. I mean, I don't even have to say this guy's a giant, right? He's one of the most muscular guys on this planet. Not to kiss ass or whatever, but I think he would be perfect for this. And I think, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, he's a really good actor, and I think he thrives in those action films, and I think he would be perfect for that. I would watch him if he did a Fortnite film too, but for me personally, I'm hoping it's a God of War film. But yeah, that is going to wrap up today's episode. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it though, like if he did God of War, he would have to kind of follow one of the game's narratives and storylines, whether it's the newest one that everybody, loves, the one that came out in 2018, the kind of reboot of the franchise, or if he does, sort of one of the other games from the, the PS3 and stuff like that. With Fortnite, there's not really a storyline, as at least that I don't know of, because it's a battle royale game. So there's really a lot of kind of creative opportunity. Not that there isn't any creative opportunity in doing a God of War film. There's tons of creative opportunity, but I feel like there's a little bit more with Fortnite. Just to kind of side with, kind of just share my thoughts on the Fortnite possibility. But still, though, I think I would love to see him do God of War. Now, he's not the only actor that can do it. I think someone like, Dave Bautista could probably do it very well too, but my first choice would definitely be The Rock. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap up episode 19 of Unbashful. I hope you all have a great and wonderful day, and I will see you on episode 20.